Hello guys, this is Zombie and welcome on my channel, or welcome back. This is the second episode of Napoleon's series. Napoleon in Italy, Battle of Lodi, 1796. So let's watch it now, let's go.
An Epic History TV PMF Productions collaboration. In 1796, at the height of the French Revolutionary Wars, a young French general took charge of a ragged, demoralized army in northern Italy. It was his first command. Many expected him to fail. Instead, in just 1 month, he won his first brilliant campaign. With astonishing self-confidence, boldness and energy, he led his army to victory after victory, transforming the war in Europe, winning praise from a grateful republic, and forging a legend. This is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte's first campaign, and the dawn of a new age. 1792. Europe is plunged into conflict by revolution in France. At first, it seems this infant republic will be quickly snuffed out by her neighbors. Incredibly, France clings on, thanks to mass mobilization, patriotic fervor, and her traditional military power. In 1795, France occupies the Low Countries, while Prussia and Spain withdraw from the war. But the French Republic still faces a powerful coalition of enemies, which includes the Austrian Empire and kingdoms of Piedmont, Sardinia, Naples, and Great Britain, as well as a counter-revolutionary revolt in the Vendée region of western France. In Paris, the most extreme revolutionaries had been toppled, sent to the guillotine, as they had sent so many before them.
Here you can see the unhinged face, it's Robespierre. So basically, during the French Revolution, and when they did the start of the First French Republic, there was a political faction called the Jacobins, and Robespierre was basically quickly became their leader, their charismatic leader. These people were quite extreme in both ideas and the means to achieve their ideas. So when they became very strong in the National Assembly, or whatever it was called back then, the French Parliament, they did create the Committee of Public Safety, and it started what is called, what is infamously known as the Great Terror, the Reign of Terror. And basically, if you want to get a sense of scale, in 1 month, they killed with guillotine, sentenced people to the death penalty, and it was done with guillotine, about as much people as the Inquisition did in hundreds of years and throughout Europe. Well, there it was only in France and, for 1 month. So you get the idea that it was something really crazy that was much more bloodthirsty than the Inquisition. And strangely enough, the Inquisition have a very bright light, while Robespierre was the leader of the Jacobins and the ones that, and his faction that did the Reign of Terror. They have, a lot of people don't like them and have a bad impression of him and the Jacobins, but a lot of people also have a good impression. While the Inquisition, I don't know anyone who is like, yeah, it was great. Well, the Inquisition, in fact, condemned like 0.1% to the death penalty, and of his 1%, only a fraction of them were really killed. While during the Reign of Terror, was like 50% of people got killed, and these people weren't criminals, were randomly killed for to appease the crazy people and their paranoia. So yeah, you can see. And also, so it was way worse in terms of sentences, but the trials, the revolutionary tribunals were a joke that led to thousands of people killed during the Reign of Terror. While during Inquisition, people don't know, but it gave us the prototype, if I can say, of the innocent before being proven guilty. Because what you need to understand that for times a lot of judicial system were basically you were accused and you had to prove that you weren't the accusation was wrong. While with the Inquisition, the burden of proof changed. It was in the hands of the Inquisition. They had to make an inquiry, and to be condemned, they had to provide proof of what they charged you for. So it was a reversal of the burden of proof. The beginning of it's a legacy for modern judicial systems. So I'm not defending Inquisition, but it's less way dark than people make it look like. Well, when you put it into perspective with revolutionary tribunals, the Jacobins, Robespierre, it's very far away in terms of darkness. And still, there are way more people that defend Robespierre and Jacobins.
France is now governed by the Directory, a more moderate five-man committee, which quickly wins a reputation for corruption and inefficiency. Nevertheless, in 1796, they plan a major military offensive to knock their most dangerous adversary, Austria, out of the war. The two main efforts will be made along the Rhine by powerful armies under General Jourdan and General Moreau. A third effort, of which much less is expected, will be made in northern Italy. The French Army of Italy is a poor cousin, starved of money and supplies, stripped of troops to reinforce French forces on the Rhine. But its fortunes are about to change.
Just something, fun fact about what I just said, the Inquisition is that world inquiry come from the Inquisition. I mean the Inquisition word come from the inquiry, because that's them that invented the inquiry. Now to come back on this subject, what he says isn't totally true. These people weren't the French army of Italy. Weren't that poor just because they prioritized the Rhine armies, but because France was in a deep economic crisis, and naturally the French government didn't have that much money. And also, if you followed at the beginning, I said that France was able to resist its neighbor and triumph. Also, one of the factors was mass conscription. And when you go from traditional armies that were relatively small to mass conscription, it means that you need way more equipment, way more money, way more supplies. So that's put even bigger strain on the military, French military. So that's because the picture was economically not good. That's ultimately the reason why the French army in Italy was so poor.
On the 2nd of March 1796, the Directory appoint a new commander to lead the army. One of France's youngest generals, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon arrives at the Army of Italy's headquarters in Nice on the 25th of March. He is just 26 years old. 2 years have passed since he masterminded French victory at the Siege of Toulon. Since then, his fortunes have been mixed. A short spell as artillery commander in Italy, 10 days in jail when his political patrons fell from power.
As far as I know, he was in good terms with Jacobins, that I told you before, where Robespierre was their leader, and Napoleon was in good terms with them. So when, as I said, the reign of terror was terrible, and so it ended up, and fun fact, Robespierre and his people ended up being guillotined, so they sent a lot of people, and their fate was to have same fate, and but so as they fall out of power, it did have a small impact on Napoleon short term. That's why he was imprisoned.
He then refused to serve in the Vendée, fighting French counter-revolutionaries, leading to several months' unemployment in Paris. Then, an extraordinary break. 13 Vendémiaire, Paris. A royalist mob threatens to storm the national government. Napoleon is the closest general to hand and put in charge of its defense. He disperses the crowds with brutal efficiency and is acclaimed savior of the revolution. A grateful
something you need to know is that it seems like military saving the government doesn't seem that much of an impressive feat, but still he needed to be very proactive. He had the idea to bring the cannons, despite the fact that usually in the streets like that and against civilians, it's that's kind of hard in your own country against civilians in tight streets. But he had the idea and had the balls to shoot, because the monarchists were there for a coup and they were armed. Because I said civilians, but they didn't come with throwers. But he did have the balls to shoot. And fun fact, you probably don't know about him yet, but they will talk about him. There was Murat here. So Murat is a general and will be one of his marshals of Napoleon, and Murat was there helping Napoleon.
Directory promotes Napoleon to General of Division and awards him command of the Army of Italy. On the 9th of March, he marries his great love, Joséphine de Beauharnais, and leaves for the front 2 days later. There are French generals in Italy with a better claim to command than Napoleon. Serrurier, a professional soldier who first saw action in the 7 Years' War, a decade before Napoleon was born. Augereau, a tough, experienced soldier, bold tactician, and committed Republican. And Massena, risen from the ranks, fearless, tireless, hero of the Battle of Lodi against the Austrians the year before. All three would later become marshals of Napoleon's empire. For now, Napoleon seems to these veterans young and underqualified, a political appointment, embarrassingly infatuated with his new wife. But there is something about the Corsican. As Massena observed, his small size and puny face did not put him in their favor, but as soon as he donned his general's hat, he seemed to grow by 2 feet.
let's just break something about Napoleon height. He wasn't small for his time. In fact, he was probably slightly above average, very slightly, like 1 centimeter or 2 above average. But why still Masséna say that is because one thing you need to understand is that people tended to be smaller because they didn't have much food access, and so they were shorter. It impacted their height. But generals were from a privileged class, and so they had less food issues, and they tended to be taller. So Napoleon were compared to the average size, but for a general he was small. That's why how you can reconcile this with reality.
Napoleon impresses above all with his tireless energy, and he has much to do. His army is organized into Masséna's advance guard of 2 divisions, one led by a hard-fighting Swiss general La Harpe, and the other by Meunier, whom Napoleon soon decides is incompetent. The main body comprises the divisions of Augereau, Serrurier, and 2 smaller divisions under Macquart and Garnier. The cavalry is led by General Stengel. But the army of Italy has been shockingly neglected by the Directory. The men are hungry and unpaid, with a few units on the verge of mutiny. Some men...
It's not negligence from the Directory, as I said. That's because of macroeconomic issues.
Don't even have shoes or muskets. Napoleon inspects the troops and studies reports. He enforces discipline and breaks up rotten units. He is assisted by his aide-de-camp, Junot, Marmont, and a dashing cavalry colonel, Joachim Murat. As emperor, Napoleon will make 2 of these men dukes and 1 a king. His most valuable assistant is his new chief of staff, General Berthier, who helps him to reorganize the army's supply system and scour southern France for food, transport, and forage. The situation begins to improve. But Napoleon knows what will really rejuvenate his ragged divisions: victory in battle and the promise of plunder.
Just something look at these legs. They worked so much by then that they had so big, so strong legs. Crazy.
Napoleon has spent 2 years studying the situation in northern Italy and the history of past wars here. He has developed clear plans on how the campaign must be fought. Now, he will put them into action. Napoleon, with 38,000 troops, outnumbers the Piedmontese and the Austrian army. But if they combine, he will be outnumbered, so he must prevent this at all costs. His plan bears all the hallmarks of what will become known as the Napoleonic art of war. A bold, rapid advance, not against the expected target, Genoa, but Dago. Here he will occupy the central position and prize his enemies apart. He knows that when threatened, the Piedmontese will retreat on their capital Turin, the Austrians on Milan. With his enemies divided, unable to support each other, he can defeat each in detail.
And here you can see that Napoleon is very bold, bold because most generals, they are very, very cautious, very hesitant, very slow, very slow to find a solution, to take action, to even make their troops move. Well, Napoleon is doing everything. He commits. He sees the solution very fast. He applies it very fast, and his soldiers execute it very fast. So you will see it in many instances. That's why he's very much faster than the others, his adversaries. And also, he's kind of isn't ball stupid, but ball smart. In the sense that he plans 4 moves ahead, like a chess master. He doesn't, because I said most generals are cautious, etc. But there are also generals that are very reckless and not very smart. But he's bold, but using it, bold in a smart way. That's what makes him. One of many things that makes him such a great general.
Napoleon's plan will be aided by the fragility of the Austro-Piedmontese alliance. They regard each other with deep distrust after years of rivalry. The new Austrian commander, General Beaulieu, is experienced and was once considered energetic, but he is now 70 years old and does not know Italy. He is convinced the French will target Genoa, the port used by the British to supply their coalition allies, so much so that he rejects Piedmontese plans for close cooperation. Their troops remain scattered across mountain passes in a general defense against invasion. On the 4th of April, Napoleon moves his headquarters forward to Albenga in preparation for his offensive. But Beaulieu strikes first. On the 10th of April, Austrian troops take Voltri to disrupt the expected French attack on Genoa. The small French garrison falls back to join Massena's advance guard at Savona. But Beaulieu's fixation with Genoa is playing into Napoleon's hands. Dago, with its vital crossroads that link the Piedmontese and Austrian armies, is covered by just 8,000 men of Argenteau's corps. Mountainous terrain means Beaulieu can only march to Argenteau's aid via Acqui, more than 20 miles to the north. What's more, Argenteau has orders to take French positions at Montenotte as a diversion for the attack at Voltri. But the French cling on courageously. Corporal Roache particularly distinguishes himself, exposing himself to enemy fire to shoot down on the enemy. His commander, Colonel Rampont, tells his men, "Here we must conquer or die," a moment which quickly enters French military folklore. It's the perfect setup for Napoleon. The enemy's attention is focused on Voltri, and Argenteau's corps has been left dangerously exposed. He swings into action, sending La Harpe's division to reinforce Rampont's troops, while Massena makes a tough night march across steep ravines in rain and fog to turn Argenteau's right flank. By dawn, the Austrians are outnumbered, outflanked, and under heavy attack. They retreat in disarray. Napoleon orders Massena to move on Dago, while he turns his attention to the Piedmontese. But Augereau's advance gets held up at Cosseria. The old castle is held by Piedmontese and Croatian grenadiers. The French launch frontal attacks into withering fire and suffer hundreds of casualties. When the colonel of the 18th Demi Brigade is killed, a 26-year-old Louis-Gabriel Suchet takes over command. "I have never seen fire like it," wrote Marmont, Napoleon's aide-de-camp. Despite heroic resistance, the hopelessly outnumbered garrison surrenders the next day. With Serrurier's division also advancing from the south, Piedmontese commander General Colli has little choice but to abandon his position at Montezemolo. The same day, under Napoleon's watchful eye, Massena takes Dago. But while La Harpe's division moves off to reinforce Augereau, hungry French troops left in Dago turn to plunder and pillage. No one spots Colonel Vukasovic, a tough Croatian commander, approaching with 3,000 reinforcements. He attacks at dawn, routing the French and retaking Dago with ease. It requires the recall of La Harpe's division and another day of heavy combat before Vukasovic can be driven out of Dago. A bayonet charge led by 27-year-old Colonel Lannes wins particular praise from General Bonaparte. Napoleon has won 3 victories in 4 days. The marches and battles have been grueling, but he has achieved his first objective.
3 victories in 4 days, that's just incredibly huge. Just imagine that some of the best military leaders historically, like take for example Alexander the Great, great military leader and great conqueror. He did like around 10 victories total. Napoleon in 4 days he did 3. I mean, it's not 100% comparable, blah 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 blah, but still puts it into perspective that it's a lot. 3 victories in 4 days, that's just crazy.
The Austrians are regrouping at Acqui and will soon retreat to Alessandria. They can offer no support to the Piedmontese. And so General Colli orders another withdrawal to a strong defensive position behind the Corsalia River. Napoleon orders an immediate attack. Augereau's division on the right, Serrurier on the left, Massena in support. But the French, under heavy fire, struggle to cross the swollen river with its steep banks. When Serrurier's troops finally get into San Michele, they immediately begin looting the town and are thrown out by a counterattack. Despite his success, Colli is still heavily outnumbered and fears encirclement. The following evening, he begins a covert withdrawal to Mondovì. But Napoleon is not deceived by the fake campfires. Patrols confirm his suspicions. The Piedmontese are pulling back. Though his troops are exhausted, wet and hungry, he launches them after the fleeing enemy.
And here you see other aspects of Napoleon's greatness. First of his reconnaissance is very, very good. He was able to see it was fake. Also, you can see he has many corps. That's basically mini armies, independent mini armies that can go fast and live off land rather than relying on slow moving wagon for supplies. And also you see that his men normally an average general would say, "Oh, my men are so exhausted. I will make them rest and then we will attack again when they are in better shape." But the thing is that here he has a lot of momentum, so he doesn't want to lose it. And also when the enemy is retreating, that's when it's the most vulnerable. Because if you make them rest, they also will rest, and more importantly, they will take up defensive position and reinforce it. They will have time to do that. So it's better to catch them while they are retreating toward a defensive position before they can consolidate in this place. So here you can see very proactive, never stop being bold, and that's always going. Don't stop.
Colli's troops are caught before they can establish a new defensive line.
Yeah.
The brave and
with against another general, he would have time. But here, Napoleon doesn't have time. Fake camps, they run away, and him, while they run away, he's on his troops, even though they are also very tired. And you can see that at the end of the day, it was worth it.
Popular General Dicat is killed. Retreat turns to rout. The French enter Mondovi in triumph, where at last, briefly, they can eat and rest.
To army uselessly attack you in full confidence, no flight before you in terror. Badass.
General Colley, his defeated troops scattered and demoralized, requests an armistice. Napoleon declines as his troops descend from the mountains into the fertile plain of Piedmont. Destitute and starved, French soldiers now plunder the Italian countryside freely. Brigadier General Joubert is among those frustrated by the men's conduct. Everything would go very well if the soldiers did not abandon themselves to pillage. Not a day passes without some looters being shot. Despite this severity, the mania doesn't stop. The rural folk are arming themselves.
I understand what Joubert says from pragmatic perspective and a moral perspective, but you need to keep in mind that the average soldier, the common soldier, was starving. So yeah, naturally, they are going to plunder. And for him, it's a bit easier to say that because he obviously, as a brigadier general, had enough food to nourish himself.
Napoleon condemns such behavior, but his orders have limited impact, especially as everyone knows Generals Massena and Augereau to be two of the greatest offenders.
These one have zero excuse as higher-ups.
On the 25th of April, French troops enter Carrasco, just 30 miles south of the Piedmontese capital, Turin. Meanwhile, General Beaulieu is at long last marching to Piedmont's aid. But he is a week late. And when he learns that Piedmont...
You heard 1 week late. So compared to Napoleon, all the other adversaries seems like being so slow, but in fact they were normal for the time. It's just Napoleon was so fast in taking decisions and executing the decisions.
Has opened negotiations with the enemy, he withdraws his troops in disgust, planning to take up new positions along the Po River. Austrian troops join in the plunder of Piedmontese villages as they go. Victor Amadeus III, King of Piedmont Sardinia, sees no option but to accept Bonaparte's terms for an armistice. Piedmont must give up the strategic fortresses at Cuneo and either Alessandria or Tortona, leaving the country virtually defenseless. The final peace treaty, signed 3 weeks later in Paris, cedes Nice and Savoie to France and grants free passage to French armies. Napoleon has ended the 4-year war with Piedmont in less than 3 weeks.
That's just crazy. Because again, for context, there are the Alps that go through there, border France and Italy. And so it's we are in 18th century. That's a mountain range. Yeah, that's not surprising that it took years, especially as they had less French soldiers than adversaries soldiers from both Austria and Piedmont. And also the French government prioritize these two armies, so you put everything together, it's normal that it wasn't it was a stalemate before Napoleon. But what's impressive is that in 3 weeks he wrecked the enemies. It's crazy, and made peace with them. 6 victories already.
The army of Italy has little time to rest on its laurels. 4 days later, having received 7,000 reinforcements and fresh supplies, it's on the move again. Napoleon plans to invade the rich province of Lombardy, ruled by the Emperor of Austria, and defeat Beaulieu's army. But first he must cross the Po River, which is closely watched by Austrian forces. It will prove one of Napoleon's most brilliant maneuvers. Massena is ordered to make conspicuous preparations to cross the river near Sale, assembling boats and building gun batteries. Meanwhile, Napoleon has formed a new elite brigade, 5,000 grenadiers, carabiniers and chasseurs.
Grenadiers are basically tallest, strongest elite soldiers. Carabiniers, I guess that's because they fight with carbines. And chasseurs, I'm not sure about that.
To act as the army's advance guard under the command of General d'Allemagne. This force is ordered to march rapidly east to Piacenza and cover 40 miles in just 36 hours. They are followed by La Harpe's division, then Augereau and the cavalry.
I mean, that's fast.
Beaulieu receives reports that French troops are moving east and begins to redeploy his forces, while remaining conscious that there are still French troops that might cross the Po as far west as Valenza. This uncertainty makes it impossible for him to concentrate his forces. What's more, he's completely underestimated the scale and speed of Napoleon's move. The French advance guard, with Colonel Lannes in the lead, crosses the Po on the 7th of May, chasing off Austrian patrols that are the only opposition. By the next morning, most of La Harpe's and Augereau's divisions and the cavalry are across, consolidating the French bridgehead, while Massena and Serrurier move to the crossing as fast as they can. Men of General Liptay's division are the closest Austrian troops. They take up defensive positions at Fombio, but are overwhelmed by the French attack. That evening, Beaulieu's advance guard arrives, expecting to reinforce Liptay. Instead, they blunder into La Harpe's division. In confused night fighting, General La Harpe is shot dead, possibly by friendly fire.
Rest in peace,
Napoleon regards him as one of the army's best generals, and his loss a great blow. Beaulieu, realizing that the French have crossed the Po in force and now threaten to cut him off, orders a rapid withdrawal east. Milan is to be sacrificed. The great fortress of Mantua will be his next refuge. The French advance guard is soon in pursuit. On the morning of the 10th of May, they catch the Austrian rearguard at Lodi. French troops chase the Austrians across town and over the town's 200-yard bridge over the River Adda. But when they try to follow, they find the bridge is swept by fire from 14 guns. Its far end is held by 3 battalions of Croatian infantry. Several more battalions and cavalry squadrons are behind them in reserve, around 6,500 men in total. Napoleon soon arrives and positions guns to bombard the Austrians on the far bank. An artillery duel rages for much of the afternoon. Napoleon sends Beaumont's cavalry brigade upstream to look for a ford so they can cross the river and flank the Austrian defences. But he grows impatient. Massena's division has begun to arrive from the south, bringing his strength up to 15,000 men and 30 guns. Napoleon makes a speech to the infantry, taunting them, daring them to take the bridge, then orders them forward. To cries of Vive la République, the hardened 2nd Carabinier Battalion leads the charge. They come under torrential fire from the Austrian guns. But urged on by Napoleon, Berthier, Massena, Lannes and others, French infantry surge across, under and around the bridge. Faced with this irresistible onslaught, the Austrian front line crumbles. And with French cavalry across the river to the north, the rest of the Austrian rearguard begins an orderly withdrawal.
Yeah, what you can see, it's extraordinary, because if you know a bit about histories, history of wars, note that people, as there was a code before, humans aren't pawns, they aren't robots. If you tell them to cross a bridge like that, and you get shot and you are likely to die. Generally, even soldiers don't want. They aren't robots with no feelings. They have fear and they have rationality. They have a survival instinct. So crossing a bridge so well protected is almost impossible. And even if you do, it can take time, and it will be seen as a success. And you will have tend to have more casualties than the defensive side. But here, you can see that it didn't take time. It just took a few hours, not days, not weeks, and they had 4 times less casualties. That's inhuman. Great battle from Napoleon and his soldiers. Great courage.
5 days after his victory at Lodi, Napoleon leads his army into the city of Milan. They are welcomed by cheering crowds. Though in reality, Italians are deeply divided in their attitudes towards the French. After Lodi, French soldiers have a new nickname for their general, Le Petit Caporal, the Little Corporal. It's a term of affection because he gets his hands dirty, even aiming the guns himself.
So this surname doesn't help, but as I said, it was for the privileged class, he was from aristocracy, and also for bourgeois, he was for both of them. This case, he was probably smaller than average, but compared to the national average, he was average. And you say the cannon, etc. It's not only just for the post. Napoleon has an artillery background, so he knew his shit about. Pardon my expression, but about artillery.
The job of an artillery corporal. In just a month, Napoleon has transformed a war-weary, dishevelled and demoralised army into a victorious fighting force, brimming with esprit de corps and eager for further conquests. While he, in his first campaign, has demonstrated extraordinary energy, mastery of detail, brilliant military intuition, above all, indomitable self-belief. It is this quality that inspires his soldiers to risk their lives for glory, for the Republic, and for the man they will one day acclaim their emperor. A big thank you to PMF Productions for their help create.
Whoa, it was a speed up. Yeah, long live the emperor. So, it's the end. Thanks to Epic History TV. Shout out to them. I will put a link in the description, so you can click on it, and it's their original video. So don't hesitate if you want to watch it without commentary, or it can lead to the video, and then you can click on their channel and watch their other videos. Don't hesitate to subscribe and to like their videos. They're very great. It's them a few years ago that made me interested in history, especially war history. So yeah, and thanks to PMF Production too, because I guess they collaborated for at least the Napoleon campaign in Italy. So whatever. Thank you also for having watched video. If you want to support the channel, don't hesitate to subscribe and give a like. Would be appreciated. Although, in fact, to be honest, I do mainly the channel to improve my English and to get more knowledge. So I do it primarily for myself, and that's okay. But if some people likes it and they support me, that's also good for everyone. So don't hesitate, and hope that you have a great day, and I tell you see you next time.